Well, happy Friday, everybody. Welcome. You are our special group that we host is it the first Friday of the month in June already? I'm Kat Bearfield, VP of Nutrition Services and Head Dietitian. We have Neil Spruce, of course, in the house doing all the teaching. And we also have a couple other special people. Berlinda Castillo, our account manager. You guys have probably done some work with her. And then, of course, we have Frank and Ash that you may have seen. We've partnered with him as well. And then welcome to all of you. Just Move is in the house, as well as, like I said, Stronger Personal Training in Worcester. It's what you're telling me, right? Did I miss anybody? So, and Pedro, of course, you guys. Thank you. You guys are always front and center and on camera. I appreciate being able to see your face. And this session is going to be good. So we're going back to the fundamentals, right? Mastering the basics. Neil's going to cover the health essentials. You're going to get a little bit of science, a lot of key takeaways, one-liners to help get these products in the hands of our clients. And then, of course, marketing materials as well. So we will follow up with a link to the recording as well as the assets if you have not received them already from one of us. And once again, welcome. This session is going to be on the health essentials. So Neil, off to you.
Okay, perfect. All right, so just on that note, all we're doing is expanding on what you guys have already had. If you go back to our first time we did this custom group in February, we did the Playspan baseline supplementation at the end after we finished everything, kind of set everything up. Then we did all the proteins. So we have all of that stuff, including the summaries, the proteins, and everything else. And they're available. These are in the YouTube channel available to you and you only, by the way. We have separate ones for the big organizations. They have their own YouTube or LMS, the learning management system that they put all these videos on, and they use it for training their onboarding trainers. So not anybody ever misses one of these videos. Okay, but today we're going to do those essentials. So we're going to expand on getting these things. So the baseline supplementation is obviously your multivitamin, mineral, and your protein. And that's all we're going to talk about today. But we're just going to go deeper into that. And baseline supplementation also includes an omega if they're not getting fish. And those are the kind of little things that are negotiable. But you're going to understand how it really fits together today. More importantly, there's a lot of slides in this thing, but it's only because you need this entire deck. So you can print an individual slide out, give it to a customer, give it to your mom or your dad or your aunt or your uncle or anybody. Use it as training materials. That's why everything's in this deck. So we'll glance over a few things, but the beginning is the most important part because that'll set everything up as we go forward all the way around. Okay, so again, we already have this. This is the baseline supplementation that nobody should ever walk out of a room with you or anybody you are working with before I have a conversation with any client, with any person, no matter what. You're taking a complete multivitamin and mineral, and you're getting your protein before and after your workout, if you're working out. Otherwise, you're just using it to make sure you get your 1 gram of protein per pound of lean body mass daily. And so, and no one makes a multivitamin like you guys do. Can't find it in a store. You can only get it through you practitioners. And the proteins, we have one for every lifestyle and diet preference, as we do for every lifestyle and gender and all life phases of the multi. So no one leaves with that. And it saves the money in the big picture. As we know, I even put the money down here to show them how much they would save on their grocery bill when they add a simple protein to their fish proteins and to their chicken proteins, and just put that on the shelf, and you use this to make sure you get your 1 gram. If you don't want your 1 gram per pound of lean body mass, don't bother with it. It just means you're not going to stay active the rest of your life. So that's it. So that's it. It can be that simple, right? But guess what? The other 2 ingredients in this formula, we talk about the calcium, right? And that's because it doesn't fit but it's a mineral. So it falls in the same category as a multivitamin mineral. It just doesn't fit if you need it. And not everybody needs it, okay? But that's negotiable. That is 100% negotiable because by law, everything has to have the calcium content of the food listed in it now, on any packaged food that there is. Drinks or any of those things has to have the calcium. We've been doing that for years. So you can easily add that up if you need to. Or if you know you're already having 2 or 3 servings of dairy, then you don't need a calcium supplement. When it comes to seafood, if you're not getting, 3 or 4 servings of fish a week, then you need a supplement. And that's it. So these are negotiable because you can see them. You can't see the vitamins. So before anything else, right? Supplementation as needed for recovery and health. These things here. You've seen this 100 times. And again, that's not negotiable. This is. So this is the whole thing put together all the way around here. All right, so let's look at the vitamins and minerals. High C and D, non-negotiable, because vitamin minerals are mostly invisible. That's your take-home message. Write that down. Most vitamin minerals are mostly invisible. And there's 20 we know you're not getting, that most people are not getting enough of. You're getting a little bit, but not enough. And there's your calcium. You can read labels to find that out. And vitamin D, you can add, you just can't count on the sun or foods anymore, which we have very high vitamin D in our multivitamin. Extra vitamin D, you're going to explain why you're going to hear why someone might need an extra vitamin D tablet beyond what's in the multi. And by the way, I'm one of those people that doesn't. My levels get up there with just the multi. All right, so here we go. The rationale for lifelong complete multivitamin mineral supplementation, including calcium and vitamin D, because they're vitamins and minerals, okay? Now here's the answer to the question. To grow stronger than otherwise by delivering the indispensable, in other words, you can't live without them, structural components and activators of all of human metabolism in the known proper amounts. You can live less or with less of them, but you can't live stronger without them. And the proper amounts to support short and long-term health. That's the answer, period. And here's the facts that support that answer. Vitamin minerals, as you know, are indispensable. That's what a vitamin means, vital amine. In other words, you can't live without it. You're missing one, you don't even start life, let alone continue it. They are indispensable components of life and health. Get less than the body can use, you get less structural and functional potential. That's not a trick equation. That's just what happens. Life doesn't start or continue without all of them working synergistically. They don't work in a vacuum. It sputters when you don't get enough, which is the RDAs. And every human system, whether it be your cardio system, your muscular system, your skeletal system, your immune system, your central nervous system, are vitamin mineral dependent, every one of them. And I didn't set the RDAs. Science established vitamin mineral RDAs, the amount needed to optimize structural and functional health outcomes at all life phases. There's the definition of it. I didn't make those numbers up, but we do know this: no one gets some of the RDAs from food alone. Simple fact. Hundreds of studies prove that. Less than the RDA creates, obviously, less than the lumber that you need, less than the steel girders you need to build a building, creates a lesser structure and functional potential. Thus, the potential for an insidious something bad happening later on, like a building crashing long before its time. Okay, so the same thing happens with the human body, early aging. The perfect complete multivitamin fills the known food gaps, but above the RDA when it comes to C and D. Everybody knows that now. That's not even an argument. RDA is just way behind times. So we actually need, but we know that you have to complement your food. So we call it an RDA correction dose. Therefore, here's your take home. The function of a lifelong, inexpensive, we're talking 30 cents a day, by the way, okay? Low dose, complete multivitamin mineral, which would have the known underconsume, which is around 20 of the 32, is to offer the potential for all vitamin mineral dependent systems, and I named them all up here, which is all of them, to operate at full capacity in the creation, which was the prenatal multivitamin, and maintenance of human structure, function, health, and recovery. So at the end of the day, if we all died young, it doesn't matter. But we live way too long to shortchange that construction. So if we don't put all of that stuff in early on, we're just going to break down early. It's that simple. We are what we eat, but we become what we miss. So all that stuff we just didn't get when we were growing up and we could have used it, you can't go back and get taller after age 25 because you missed protein and some of the other vitamins. So it's the same thing with your cardiovascular. You can't go back and rebuild it again, all the stuff you missed during its growth years. All these things that people just don't get. They are the building materials. But here's the thing. Of all essential nutrition, protein, fats, water, etc., vitamin minerals are the most difficult to attain in the proper amounts. Protein's easy, fats are easy, and water's easy. Especially, though, within the calories that maintain a healthy weight. Because you can't just eat everything in the world and expect to stay lean, which obviously is what you need to stay healthy. And especially when you have as many choices as we have in Western societies. So here's a quick test to prove that. Look at that plate. Looks like a pretty healthy plate. The fries, you could argue, but let's just say they're really not fried, okay? Quick test. Find the 4 essential macros and the amounts. I can see the protein, I can see the carbs, I can even see some vegetables, and I can see the water. So that's all there. I can see the fats. The fats are obviously in the protein, everybody knows, and then we have fats here. I can see it all. That's easy to see. And by the way, if you can't see it, it's going to show up on your waist anyway. That's what the macros do. And so that's an easy one, right? But how about this? Now, find and name the 32 essential, can't live without, micros, including vitamin D, and amounts in that food, right? Plate right there. Well, obviously you can't. Therefore, now we're down to the why if you take a supplement, the why to take a vitamin mineral, where you start. This is where you start. Everyone has gaps. And here are your gaps. Just for those of you that don't know, or we saw this when I did the original intro, these are the gaps on everybody that lives in the Western developed nations, from Western Europe through us, anybody that eats a Western type diet. These are our gaps from food alone. And by the way, this is what brought on the prenatal. And I'll remind you again, the prenatal is nothing more than a multivitamin mineral. It became mandatory that every conceiving mother has to take. Every doctor had to, by bylaws, American Medical Association, American Pediatric Association, American Dietetics Association, etc. Every conceiving mother needs to take a complete multivitamin mineral. Started in the 70s. That single act wiped out over 35% of all major birth defects. What about adult defects? I mean, it's just comical that you're not going to eat any better when you get out of there, okay? But we knew the mom was just going to accidentally get the food she needs to be able to feed the baby, so we can bump that up all the way around. And everyone, including athletes, are in at least 5 to all of these categories right here, unless they are using a complete vitamin mineral. So think about that. Everyone's in at least 5 of these categories, and many people are in all of these categories. So that's the holes in your body. That's the structure difference in the body as it grows up. I highlighted these because these are extra supplements that you may need on top of a multi that are actually in a multi, right? So you got your calcium, you got 73% of the population that is calcium insufficient, and almost 100%. You might as well say 100% if you're not supplementing vitamin D. Or insufficient to be able to support a proper health. Now, here's the importance of calcium while you're young. The why. While you're young, calcium and vitamin D. By the way, calcium doesn't work without a vitamin D. So rickets was like the biggest disease on the planet, starting in about the early 20th century. And they realized it was a vitamin D deficiency. So they ended up putting milk. The milkman was born. The milkman would drop milk off, and it was fortified with vitamin D, and we cured rickets, which is a bone disease, right? Just weak bones. Everybody breaks down early. Everybody dies early, right, from breaking all this stuff. So they cured it. So the bottom line is that people started wandering away from drinking milk, and the milkman's gone. And so the world changed, and we're now back to rickets again, and osteoporosis everywhere, and all that type of stuff. So the bottom line, here's the importance of getting your vitamin D and calcium requirements while you're young. So this is your take home. The stronger you build it, the longer it lasts. So I put the numbers in here because it's part of a bigger lecture that I do. But this is right here from Linus Pauling Institute. Right here, this shows you bone mass over a lifetime. I don't care if you supplement, I don't care how much calcium you get. No one builds bone after their 3rd decade of life. It's all over. Now, if you took enough building material to build all the bone before your 4th decade of life, during your, obviously these years, especially these years, look how fast you're building bone from day 1 through here. Almost 80, 90% of your bone is built before age 20 during puberty. But what if you built it with straw because you weren't getting the RDA of vitamin D, vitamin K, calcium, and magnesium, because that's part of your bone? What if you built it with that? Okay, well, you're only going to have a certain amount of bone mass. But if you got all you could get during that period, you've got enough bone that no matter how much you lose, you're going to last. You couldn't live to be 150 and worry about losing it, where at least 80% of the population over age 70 has lost it to a point where they break down early, they fall, they break hips, they break all that. That is completely avoidable by making sure that you've got enough calcium and vitamin D during these years. That window closes right there. Game over. You're not going to add anymore. You can take supplements at that point and stave it off, take drugs, stave off the loss. You can do that. but that's what the importance of this is. And so for me, every kid that I have ever talked to, and these are thousands and thousands, as you know, I coached football when these kids were young. I made sure they got their calcium. I made sure they were taking a multivitamin, and their calcium they were getting from their protein source because it had 400 milligrams of calcium. I didn't want him to take a calcium tablet. I'd rather have him just do it this way. So there you go. That's the importance of getting it. The stronger you build it, the longer it lasts, because we're trying to keep that from happening. Here is a 20-year-old kid in college. You guys probably remember this. It was right on national TV when it happened in the Final Four. This guy snaps it there. It's an up and down movement, and that is nothing more than a nutrition deficiency of calcium and vitamin D growing up. You just don't know when it's going to happen. You have no clue when it's going to break down like that. And the problem is that significant departure from in adulthood from the use of dairy products, especially fortified cow's milk, and the warnings of sun exposure, that's where we get the other vitamin D, have significantly reduced the ability of our population to acquire these levels in the right around from diet alone. In fact, it's impossible to get vitamin D from that anymore. And we live too long. So I put the vitamin D stuff in here. And this is all about athletes. I do a lecture on vitamin D. I mean, and I can easily argue this one for you because no one worked with more pro athletes and college athletes than we do. This is every athlete takes about 3 or 4 extra vitamin D daily, every day. And here's the reasons. You really have to, and as an athlete, to prevent some of the fractures and stress fractures, you about need 40 nanograms per milliliter. That's the blood work when we do it on them. Above that, with humans, with the average human, greater than 30 is good enough, right? And that's what we're looking for, greater than 30 nanograms. And when you get your vitamin D test, you get your physical, always ask for a vitamin D test from your doctor. And they should be giving them automatically, but many of them don't, because it is a little extra cost from your insurance. Okay, so here you go. These are all just some stats on that. But almost all researchers agree that greater than 50 nanograms, which there's no way you're going to get that from the sun or food, that's be impossible. Even our multi on top of the sun and the food won't get you there. You've got to go well above the RDA 2 or 3. And then you can achieve maximal physical performance, which I think every human being wants that, right? I just put this stuff in for athletes. And the latest research is all right here. Click on any of these links, you'll get all the latest research on musculoskeletal injuries and vitamin D. Okay. But the other thing is, this is what pisses me off about athletes. They're so young. Your body does things a little bit better when you're young. And then all the stuff that you didn't get when you were young, now you're paying for it as an adult, which is why athletes are so crippled as they get older. Vitamin D doesn't work by itself. It works with the other 31 vitamins and minerals to make it work properly. Calcium doesn't work without vitamin D. Vitamin D doesn't work without calcium in the bone, right? It works in many other places, but it needs all the other vitamin minerals to work together to make things work. And without a doubt, the new recommendations are virtually unachievable without supplementation. That's why we make an extra vitamin D supplement. Now you know why we do. Otherwise, someone like me, I actually reached that 40 nanograms per milliliter without having to take an extra one. That's because I've taken one my whole life. You can't just start taking a vitamin D supplement and expect your nut levels to go up. It takes years to get them up to that level properly. Okay, exacerbating nutrient gap problems today. Why is it worse today? Why are we have more gaps today than ever? It's because of these diets. You got paleo, you got keto, you got vegan, gluten-free, intermittent fasting. I mean, I can name a bunch more. But these are the missing nutrients. These are so far below the RDA because they eliminate entire food groups. Look at this. This is where this stuff's coming from. Now, the good news is for our business, it's tripled our business over the years because people need to take supplements, and our dietitians are smart enough to tell people what they need to take. But these people that don't run into people like you and us, they're setting themselves up for failure later. They'll lose their weight or whatever they're trying to do here, but bad things are going to happen later. So don't tell people they can get all their vitamin minerals from food alone if they eat properly. What's properly? They think this is properly. Really? Okay. And within the amount of calories that would keep you lean. It's just a joke. And it's been validated by the fact that it's never worked ever. And those are all the most recent studies. So again, I always like to throw that slide in there. And what does that mean? That you've been functioning like this, all your gaps, you've been living like that. What is that? How does that play out in your body? Right here. So your whole life, when you were even outside the womb, because good news, your mom was taking a complete multivitamin mineral, but outside the womb, you're functioning 60 to 85%. That's what this comes down to. 60 to 85% of your vitamin mineral potential. The benefits that you get from having 100% are going to be way up here, which is the RDA. Like I said, That's what the RDA is. Here's your food intake. And if you get this much here, then you're functioning and deficient. We don't have deficiencies. We have insufficiencies. So you're functioning 60 to 85%. We need to get you there. That's what it is. So you're living here without knowing the future. You're fine. You go to work, you go to practice. Everything's okay because you're young. You're not paying the price yet. But here, you were living without knowing the future. And here's a stat before I click the next sentence here. Kids that stop drinking milk, it has nothing to do with milk. It has to do with calcium and vitamin D that's in the milk. Kids that stop drinking milk because their parents, for whatever reason, had them stop drinking it, fracture 8 times more than milk drinkers. 8 times more, which means they're never going to keep playing ball. They're not going to keep moving. They're always going to be in the back of their mind. All those things are going to happen, especially when they get older, osteoporosis, all these things. So just keep that in mind. They didn't know that was going to happen. That kid had no idea what was going on in their body right now. Those insufficiencies, all of these, have an undetectable starting point. You don't know when it's happening. You're just building a weaker structure with straw and a little bit of wood here, a little wood rather than steel girders, because you're under what your body can use. An undetectable starting point that begins an insidious progression slowly that physically will manifest as sickness. We already seen this. This is all over the news when COVID hit. Who are the most people that are most affected? The most that are under nutrition and overweight. Sickness, injury, weight gain causes weight gain. Stress, because every system is vitamin mineral dependent, including the way your body regulates stress, often throughout all of life. And then also it restricts your activities later on in life, shortening independence and causing early aging. This is going to happen. You just don't know it yet because you didn't get all those building materials, because all your structure and functional systems are less than they can be. So how do you fix that? That's where everybody is with food alone. I don't care who you are. You can tell me, you can sell me all you want about how well you eat. You're functioning somewhere in there. All right, so how you build the perfect multivitamin mineral. This is what you guys have available to you. It's a practitioner product versus the crap you get in the mass market. Well, no one does what we do. And all of you have been here, and I know Pedro's been here, of course, Frank and everything else. My whole wall is built with a chart that is ever changing, that has the vitamin minerals that all humans need to survive. And in that chart, it's listed along with all the new known food contributions. We know what the food contribution is of vitamins and minerals from just looking at data. So let's just blow up vitamin D, right? So they're all listed here. Let's just blow up vitamin D here so you can see it. So all of these, look at it. There's vitamin D. There's how much we get from food. And some people don't even get that, but that's an average mean amount, right? That's what the RDA is. Look at the difference between the nanograms here, the milligrams here, nanograms, the micrograms, 4.9 versus that. That's what you're supposed to get. That's too much there, even though it's probably not. It's just they haven't fixed that yet. That's the gap between what you get from food and what you need. So guess what? It's pretty easy to make the supplement the right number. Well, obviously no one does that unless you're a practitioner product like we are. But we want to stay away from the upper limit. Now watch. So that's how you get this with all of these things. Your supplement is, the amount of the supplement should be right there because it matches all the things we saw with food intake. And now you know why. All of this is magical. These numbers are actually perfect. You can't get any better. But what happens if you have to add calcium? Because you can't fit calcium in there if people need it. And not everybody needs calcium. What do you need to do? Well, you've got to take a look at calcium on the chart right here, right? And know what the UL is, right? And then you end up with this. To make calcium work, you have to have vitamin D, vitamin K, because someone might be taking this product all by itself, and magnesium. So now this works all by itself if they're not taking a multi. But what if they are taking a multi, which almost everybody in the planet is taking a calcium, is taking a multi? Well, guess what? The multi has vitamin D, and it has vitamin K, and it has magnesium. Well, you better make sure you don't cross that line if they're taking both. Now, who in the world does that? Who knows that? Well, you never have to worry about that when your clients are taking the essentials from us. That's what we do, which is why we're the #1 in pro sports and college sports and any of your big billion-dollar organizations. So you got the perfect synergy no matter what it is when you're taking all of that. And of course, it's all third-party tested. So there you go. So what did we just do? We just corrected the food vitamin mineral content to achieve RDAs without adding a single calorie. We move this human being to here. And now at least they have the potential. I don't know what's going to happen in their life. I don't know what they're doing in their life other than that, but they now have the potential to be able to, their structural and functional potential to do whatever they want to do and remain independent as long as the rest of the stuff is working within the calories that support leanness. We just made a complete correction. So there it is. We started it off, the lifelong, inexpensive, 30 cents a day offer potential for all systems to operate at full capacity in the creation and maintenance of human structure. And I put this in here. This is just a little takeaway. We have one for starting at age 2. We stopped making a prenatal a long time ago when I had 20,000 employees at one time. And we had to make prenatals back then because I was having babies. Everyone's having babies. And so we had to make it prenatal. And the joke was, it was Apex back then. The joke was, if you take an Apex prenatal, you're going to have a 10-pound baby. I'm thinking that almost happened. All my kids were 10 pounds, and that was kind of the joke all the way around. But, you know, as we grew up and everything else, we don't have a market for it. Doctors prescribe it automatically. So we just tell you to take your prenatal from your doc. But as soon as your kids get teeth, and then, of course, after that, you got the breastfeeding, and then you got the fortified infant. But for all of you who don't know, babies are taking a multivitamin all the way up until they stop taking a fortified infant formula. An infant formula, when you're feeding a baby an infant formula, that is nothing more than a multivitamin mineral with the calcium, the vitamin D, and that's what it is, to give them the stuff they need to start growing. So why would you ever stop taking that? But as soon as they get teeth, they'll start with ours. And this is the most complete kids multi on the planet. 2 to 11 years old, 2 to 4, you take 1, and then 5 to 11, they're going to take 2. And then they move to the active, right? They're all, most male and females. And then 18 to 50, take the women's. If you're still very active as a female, very, very active, you'll continue taking the 2 actives, but that's all done on the software. You don't have to worry about that. Hard training, male and female athletes will continue that. 50 plus, that's pretty much happening there. But at 65, I don't care how hard you train, because how hard can you train at 65 compared to when you were 30? At the end of the day, the over 50 is all you would need. So these are all laid out perfectly when you just answer a couple of questions on the screener or the program. And then, of course, we have a vegan as well. And to duplicate that, if you took that active multi or the women's or the over 50, and you had to match the ingredient for ingredient, you can never find a multi to do that, obviously. But you'd have to add like 3 or 4 different things to it, and it would cost you at least $50 a month. And that's at the cheapest prices on the planet, internet prices. And you're paying $19.95 for ours. So pretty crazy. And we actually have the price comparisons in a little appendix for you. And you know what's unique? We just talked about that. There's obviously that optimal correction dose is what's most unique. We have the controlled release that releases it over time. Third-party tested, just all of these things we just talked about. I just put it all in one sheet so you can train your trainers this way. And the inexpensive. Now, if you're taking 2 actives a day, because I'm coming 60, you're still cheaper than anything else you can possibly buy. And don't compare it to Centrums or One A Day. Those are great for small mammals with short lifespans. They are not made for active people, and they're missing too much of the stuff that's in here, and certainly they're not the right doses. And here's a simple chart Kat put together for everybody. So it just kind of shows you what is the difference between this one. Those are basic differences. There's some other ones, but that's all you need to know. So you can print that out for your trainers and put it on the counter anytime you need to. And then here's the other one. These are both, now you just learned a really important thing, the difference. These both, your calcium and your vitamin D3, right, are designed to be complementary to your multivitamin and food, and they're both NSF certified. And again, this is obviously if you need it to support bone and health, because you're not getting it from diet, and it's negotiable. So I put everything in here. I'd rather have you do the math on all labels that you're looking at. Otherwise, I put a simple formula in here, which we use on a software. 1 cup of milk's 300 milligrams, an ounce and a half of cheese, 300 milligrams. So if you're getting, how many dairy servings are you getting? So if they're saying, less than 1, then they're going to have to take 2 of these a day. 1.5 to 2, take 1. So you can I just kind of put that in there just so you at least have, that's in our software. End of the day, intense, prolonged training or all right there, just so you know.
Thumbs up. Pedro, I can see you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we're here. I think it was Neil freezing.
Okay. Yeah, we lost Neil. I think his internet was going wonky. Poor guy. He was on a roll too, you know? He's always on a roll. Let me just text him real quick and see where he's at. Get him to come back.
All right. We lost him like 20 seconds.
Pat, can you hear me?
Okay, we can hear you now. Are you back, Neil?
Okay, yeah, for sure. Where do we
pull your, if you can hear me, pull your slides back up, Neil. You're gonna have to reshare. I'll text you.
Can we get these?
Dial. Oh, there you are. There you are.
Can we get these slides to our email?
Of course. We'll happily send them to you. Was that you, James?
Yeah, from Just
James,
Move.
the show.
Yeah, don't ask about the show, but
okay.
Yeah. JP's my boss. If you can email it to JP for me, if that's possible.
No problem. No problem. We'll send it over to JP.
I appreciate it.
Here we go, Neil. I can see your screen now. And while we're waiting for you, I don't know, Neil, you might have to log in. I mean, you might have to call in.
He's
I don't know
muted.
if the internet is.
You're muted.
I'm here now.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Okay, you guys hear me now, right? Yeah, but I know, but
Yeah,
that doesn't mean anything. I may have to, let's see what we were. Let me try this. Can you see that now?
It's starting to share. It's starting to share. Hang on one second. Let's see if it comes back on. Yep, it's here. Now go full screen.
Okay, so
okay.
Where did we leave off? Did we leave off here? Do you remember where we left off?
Yeah, right here.
Right here? So we got this? Okay.
Yep.
What about this? Kat?
I think this is a good spot to pick back up.
Yeah. Right here? Okay.
Let's pick up right here.
So yeah, okay. So again, you guys, we saw how we complement the multivitamin mineral. So I just put some little data points in here. And by the way, these are all printable assets for you to use or send them anywhere, social media, whatever you want to. But these are all the facts that are behind the algorithms on everything. So this is how these two complement the multivitamin. So I have the little one-liners here. This is what you need if you're not getting this much. This kind of tells you how much you would get from food, which is easy, but I'd rather have you read labels. Every label has to have, by law, has to have the amount of calcium in it now. Vitamin D is a little bit different. And, basically, I gave you the math on that here. Everyone can take an extra vitamin D on top of what's in the multi. There's 1,000 I use the multi, but you can take an extra one of these during high flu season or exposure. And then athletes, 1 to 2, they'll take it all year round on top of their multi because they need to achieve a little higher level if they're highly competitive athletes going through a lot of stuff. But you're never going to hurt yourself. It can only be a possible positive. Okay, and by the way, here, this is the last part of this. We're not alone. The top nutrition scientists in the world. So these aren't MDs because MDs don't know anything about nutrition generally. That's not what they go to school for. They just go after the fact. And they're great at what they do. But the top nutritional science people in the world all agree that achieving nutrient RDA is the goal for long-term health, and multivitamin minerals can get you there as long as they contain the things people are missing, as I just showed you, and you've got it. So at the end of the day, just do it. So it's a simple multivitamin mineral, add calcium if needed, and the vitamin D if you want to get your blood levels to a certain amount. You can add an extra vitamin D. So we just checked that off. We checked these 3 things off, done. The omegas, the simple way to look at omegas is this. Think of it as another vitamin mineral because it really kind of functions that way in different areas of the body. Every cell has an omega-3 in it. They're all there. They're critical molecules in the way our cells communicate back and forth. They give them cell membranes the strength they have so they can, take damage that goes on. And they're critical in the development, maintenance, and structure and function of the brain, especially immune and vision systems. So, and that's why in kids in the third trimester now, it's not just a multivitamin mineral as a prenatal. All your pediatricians and OBGYNs are now giving an omega-3 to the conceiving mother as well, because it's part of building everything into it. All of the structure and function, and you can't go back and fix that. And we've studied kids 5 or 6 years later in life, and we find them cognitively superior to kids that didn't get enough omega-3s earlier. So it's very simple all the way around. And the why is just, we just don't get enough. We know that if you're not eating 2 to 4 servings of fish weekly, which over 90% of the US does not, greater than 90% of Americans are below the beneficial amounts, we have a high health risk. We know that. When you start moving it into athletes take 3 or 4 of these for recovery. There's all kinds of new research around the recovery. I'm just giving you the minimum dose for health outcomes, which would be 1 of these a day if you're not eating 4 servings of fish weekly. All right. And so this just shows you all the new studies, though, around athletes for recovery, body composition, all of these things, including VO2 max, all of these things they're using it for now. Most athletes will take 3 or 4 of these a day to recover from their activities. So here it is. Based on what you can see, it's pretty easy to see if you're falling short on fish. Is that a fish on my plate? All you got to do is look at it. If you're getting 3 or 4 servings a week, you're going to be fine from a health standpoint. That doesn't mean you wouldn't want to take it. If you're an athlete, take maybe 1 or 2 of these extra. That's up to you. But the bottom line, here's your one-liners. Keep cells strong and communicating by giving your cells the healthy fatty acids most diets do not supply, but are needed to recover and properly rebuild daily. The ideal EPA-DHA, which separates this from other ones, supplies these critical molecules needed in the development, maintenance, structure, and function of the cardiovascular, brain, immune, and vision systems. That's why it sounds like a multivitamin, but it's also one of those molecules your body has to have to really maintain a strong structure. And there you go. So I put all the numbers you would actually need here. Consuming greater than right here, if you're eating 4 servings a week, otherwise you don't need a supplement. Otherwise, add a supplement. And I actually put it down here. If you're trying to achieve a different level, then you might want to supplement anyway. And again, I rarely have to because I eat fish probably 6 to 8 times a week. Unless I'm traveling, then I'll be taking 1 of these to make up for what I'm missing. So all the numbers are right here for you in a one-liner. And these are all printable. Don't forget, this is all just keeping all of your information in one place. So boom, we just check that off, and you guys know what protein's all about. The why, the bottom line is exercise recovery. We want to hit that window before and after a workout. And these are just your facts on protein. We already did this last lecture, but I put it all in here. This is the why. Protein mixes can do stuff whole food proteins can't. And it's a great add to your pantry. You're saving money and you're getting a different protein source that has health benefits that none of the other ones have. Fish they have their own unique, but whey proteins or our vegan protein have its own health benefits, let alone the fact that it's more protein with less calories and it's ready to eat. But my go-to for presenting your fast digesting protein powder, we did this, of course, in a lecture. I want to just say you have there's 3 things here, right? We know that if you take it before and after workout, you're going to heal better and you're better at your next workout. That's just fact of life. We call it anti-aging. But also when you take it before a workout, 30 or 40 minutes before, now you got to work out because you can't back out now. That's what I always liked about it. The economics of it is crazy. I mean, where are you going to get 50 grams of protein for $3 to $4? Ain't going to happen, especially today in these inflation. Well, never going to happen anyway. And it's faster than fast food. So there's no excuse for not having this in your pantry. And of course, solid science shows faster recovery. So it was an easy conversation for me. No one leaves my office without taking a protein with them. When you save money and you're going to recover better, that's pretty easy. Because whole food takes 4 hours. Someone write it down, 4 hours to break out the amino acids. You missed that window. That doesn't mean you're not going to recover. You're still going to recover, but not nearly as much when you have this much anabolic activity and the amino acids are all showing up then because you took a fast-acting protein. So it's pretty easy. Incremental, and this is your take home, incremental gains over time and cuts down on more expensive proteins while adding to overall health and recovery. Easy consideration there. And of course, you guys know we have one for every diet preference and lifestyle. There's this grouping of them, and then here's your specialized ones here. So there's no reason anybody, there's not a single person. And what makes them special is that they all have the profiles that match whey. Doesn't mean they are, because obviously this one is not, right? But we match the profiles, which makes protein superior. And there you go. We just did them all. We just checked off your essential dietary support. And we just did this. We took this person here, who's low on the things we just talked about. We moved him here within the calories that promote leanness. So a lot of really good things happen with that simple, inexpensive act to help keep them to play until the end of days. Now we can add, now if you want, now you can add creatine and all this. Why would you add creatine if they weren't doing this? Why would you even add a fat loss supplement if they weren't doing this? This is the foundation to all the other stuff that's happening. But now we can do it. So here it is. Ready? Really the crescendo to all this. Correcting food nutrient content to achieve adequate protein and RDA is a simple, inexpensive addition to what we do that gives the potential to change a person's life. These are the 3 actions only we can make happen because they're in our control with anybody we meet. 1, staying active. They're already there. I'm not worried about that. They're in the gym. They came to us. We're in the gym. That's what they came to do, be active. So we got that done. Then we add our baseline supplementation, the dietary support to fill the known gaps that we just looked at. And I can do that in any diet. I don't care how bad your diet is. I'm making a difference by at least doing that. But yeah, I want you to eat the best you can. But by doing that, by filling those known gaps, that will help lead to maintaining a healthy body weight. Because what? Guess what? I'm giving minimum calories with maximum nutrition. And that gives you the energy and creates the leanness. So now we've got the structural and functional potential for our Playspan to equal our lifespan. And you guys know my favorite thing that we all saw here. I've been doing this globally now for 10 years, maybe a little bit more. I kind of lose track of time, starting with the prenatal. This is the way the world is today. We can change it. The average person's health span is only 68. They only live to 76 in the United States, which is embarrassing. That's the average lifespan. These are all referenced algorithms. They're on drugs. They've got all kinds of problems at 68, medications. They stop doing the things they love at 35, the average American. And it's based on the fact that they're following what we tell them to do, those 3 things I just said, by only 40%. But here's what can happen if they just do a little bit more, 50%. I just closed the gap 20 years, just a bump up, filling gaps, moving a little bit. Keep moving, a healthy lifestyle, eat the best you can and fill gaps. They follow what I give them, 60%. Look at this, bang. 75, which is the easiest thing in the world. And pretty much you're going to remain independent your whole life. And this is where we all can and should be. And the earlier you start, these simple 3 actions, the truer the numbers. You can't just start them when you're 80 years old and think it's going to fix everything. It's too late. You need to start as early as possible. And we have that access to those people when they're younger, when they're coming into the club and getting them to do these simple, inexpensive things to make a difference in the world. And of course, especially their life. Because this is the way I see the future. Future fitness is we are the primary preventive side of healthcare, period. Imagine a world of healthcare versus the sick care we are today. So we have a health cabinet, right? That's what we have, a health cabinet versus the medicine cabinet. This is what a regular medicine cabinet looks like. But the health cabinet's got just the simple little things we talked about. The prevention before drugs with side effects. This is what every person over 50 years old has there. And I'm not exaggerating. That's a real picture of a over 50-year-old, 65-year-old actually, medicine cabinet right there. So you can pay a very little now or a whole lot later and a hell of a lot more than money. And so I always like to end with that slide on all that stuff there. So there it is. There's your complete recovery program. Everything's in here. I put it all in one slide for you. There's your multi, and they're daily as needed. You make sure you get your 1 gram. And if you're exercising, use it before and after here. Calcium, if needed, right there. And all the information we just looked at. Vitamin D to get to that level if you need it. Otherwise, if you're already at that level, you don't have to worry about it. Or just take it anyway. It's so ridiculously cheap if you're not getting a blood work. And then your omega-3s there if needed. But that's easy by looking at your plate. So I put it all in one place, and there's your lifetime solution. It pays for itself. So I put all your stuff together back here. You can use all of this stuff for handouts, scripts. It's all here for you to use when you present Playspan, a simple economical program. So there's this one here. We looked at it at the very beginning. Your one-liners around the multis that separate you from everybody else. Your one-liners around all the proteins that separate you from everybody else. Right there, cost savings, even put that on there. There's your calcium, omega-3 one. I just put them all in one place. We already did all these, but these are your one-liners around each one of the products. So you have it all in one place for your clients and for your trainers as you give them the information you want. If you're promoting multis, all you need is that slide there. It's pretty much got everything you need on it. And you use one of the other ones we have that shows the difference between the two. And there you go. And then all of this is on one slide. So I crank this one all up. So everything's on here, your vitamin D. So you have one page if you wanted to look at it all that way. And you can just print all these things out. And then here's your scripts for vitamin minerals for weight loss. Because you always, when someone wants to lose weight, I always talk about the vitamin mineral for fat loss mechanism. So I just put all these in here for you as well. And these are just little scripts from all our top trainers. If someone's got a fat loss goal, then why they need a multivitamin mineral. Well, if every system's vitamin dependent, so is your fat loss mechanisms and appetite and all these things. So they're all laid out here on these different one-liners here from trainers. Here's one for muscle gain, right? Well, all your systems work at full capacity. You're going to build more muscle faster all the way around. And we're also going to feed muscle and starve fat at the same time. So again, just some one-liners around them all. So they're all in one place. That's the whole idea of doing this for you guys. I'm not going to read all this to you, but you have this now. So what if someone just wants a multivitamin for wellness? All of these right here. Getting your Playspan to equal your lifespan within calories that promotes leanness. Just some simple little one-liners because everything system is vitamin. And these are some of the things that Eve does. You guys have met her and so forth. She always talks about, your multivitamin, getting 5G. It's like getting 5G in your cell phone. You go into a neighborhood with no service. Well, that's kind of what's going. We want you to have 5G on all your apps working efficiently. So some really good stuff. It's not a sexy supplement because you don't just take it and go, whoa, I feel great. But you do over time, you can continue to feel great and greater. And just some simple one-liners. So you have them for every goal when you're teaching and here's one for vitamin D, so you have it as well. Shown to be critical to mounting proper immune response. As you know, vitamin D is just all over the news. And also active throughout the entire body, making achieving proper levels a personal goal for everyone to support health and performance, including athletic performance at all stages of life. Virtually no one gets adequate vitamin D without supplementing. So that's probably the easiest supplement you'll ever sell because it's all over the news. They're selling it for you. And that's the recommendation we already saw. I just put all on one slide for you. And that's it, guys. There's some other things there. This is all this. I just want to make sure you had it all in one place. Your calcium one-liners are here too. We already looked at them. I just kind of transferred them over here so you'd have them all in one place. And then here is your omega-3 one-liners there we looked at. And here's some scripts for omega-3s that you might want to look at when you're teaching trainers. So if you're promoting just omega-3 1 month, which is very common in many of our clubs, one slide. And then this here is for your trainers to look at and being able to present it. That's simple. That's how you use all of these assets that we've created for you. And you already have these. I did this on your protein thing, but I just want to make sure you had them all together. These are your one-liners on each protein, vegan protein. And so you know the differences. Just want to show you they're all there, and that's it, guys. I put some price comparisons back here because people always talk about that. There's your vegan baseline. Always add a digestive enzyme to that because people don't digest plant proteins very well. We are less expensive than any other product on the market. So don't let anybody tell you it's too expensive because you can't compare apples to oranges. So I put some of those in there as well. Same thing with the omega. You'll never find an omega at our cost if it's still apples to apples. Not even close. When we find apples to apples, you can see the difference in cost. It's double, pretty much double, triple. All right, we're good. So let's open it up to everybody. These are just all your overcoming objection stuff. Promotional materials are all here. Whatever you're promoting. You guys have all this from every lecture we do. Promotional materials are just click on and get the products you want for that. Okay. That whole back end was nothing more than a library for you guys to look at when you're promoting whatever essential product you're promoting that month. And that's the way the clubs use all that stuff. You can use it in the club, you can use it outside the club, you can share it with anybody you want. Those are all legitimate pieces there for you.
I have a question, a comment and a question.
Yep.
So when it comes to vitamin D, one of the things that really resonated with me was learning that the liver actually converts the vitamin D into actual usable vitamin D from the sun. So most of our clients like their wine and are probably wanting to lose weight. So their liver is probably not functioning as well. So it was like a pretty no-brainer to go, listen, your liver is probably not converting vitamin D as well. So we might as well. I mean, most Americans are deficient in vitamin D. So it just makes sense for you to be taking the vitamin D. At least for me, that made a lot of sense. But my question for you is, when it comes to the synergy, we're taking the essentials. Can you explain that a little bit more? So if you're taking the multivitamin, the calcium, the vitamin D, and you have the different IUs or micrograms of the vitamin D, how does that translate afterwards?
Okay. So, I mean, that's always the difficult part for fitness professionals to get. I mean, if you've lived in the world as long as I have, of that world of having to study that, it makes it pretty simple to do it, but it's not simple to explain because our complete multivitamin mineral cannot fit a calcium. Calcium is obviously a mineral, right? But if someone needs it, it's not going to fit in there. It'll be the size of a shoe. All right. So you have to have a separate supplement for those who need it. And not everybody needs it. I've never taken a calcium supplement in my life. I never stopped drinking milk. I get plenty from my diet. Right. And you don't want too much calcium. Too much calcium, like all minerals, too much of any mineral is bad, and too little of any mineral is worse. So that's why it's a fine line. So calcium has to be a separate supplement. If you see it in a multivitamin, it's just junk. It doesn't matter. It's not making a difference because unless the vitamin's this big, and then you're not going to be able to swallow it. So we already know that. So that's why it's got to be a separate supplement for people like me that don't need it. And then for people that do need it, it's got to be, that's why it's the size it is. It's got to be a certain size. You added that to a multi. Can you imagine how big it would be? So that's why you don't. Does that make sense?
It does. But my question is more, let's say we don't have the blood work to go by.
No blood work. Stop. I'm only talking about calcium. You don't have blood work.
No, but
that's on the label. That's on the label.
Okay, if you're taking the multivitamin and the D and the calcium, let's say you're taking the calcium, the synergy, how does that? Let's say you are taking. That's the explanation.
Right. So calcium, you only have to take calcium if you're not getting enough. And I put that on that one slide where it says, if you're getting 2 to 3 servings of dairy a day, you're done. You don't need a calcium supplement. That's the easy, simple conversation I would have with somebody, right?
Yeah.
If you're taking our protein powder, you're getting 2 servings of dairy right there. Well, I fortified all our proteins with calcium so people wouldn't have to take a calcium supplement, right? Because 1,000 milligrams is what you want. 1,200 milligrams is as much as you want, right? And then every label, look at every food product, it has the calcium content just like it has the calories. And I have to tell people, you either add that up or here's my other question for you. And they go, I don't eat anything that's got calcium. Okay, then you're going to take 2 a day. So that's the only way you can answer a calcium question professionally. You can't do it any other way. There's no blood work to tell you if you have enough calcium. That's all bullshit, right? Yeah. Vitamin D is different. The vitamin D in our multi and the vitamin D in our calcium. If you combine those two, you're taking our calcium supplement and vitamin D, you're going to get about 1,200 IUs of vitamin D, which is well above the RDA. That's 800 IUs is the RDA. So you're getting about 6 micrograms. We've kind of changed it all over. Just forget that. We'll just call them IUs because people are used to. So you're getting more than enough to be able to satisfy your bone needs, but you may not be getting enough for all the new health recommendations that came out in 2010. Every scientist is pissed off at the RDA people and everybody else because they're all saying there's no way that the RDA of vitamin D satisfies anybody's requirement. And we'll prove it with blood tests. So the blood test came out about 2010, an OH25 blood test. And now almost all your good docs will automatically add it to your physical. And when that blood test comes out, they're saying they want you at 30, greater than 30 nanograms per milliliter. And it's right there on the blood work, right? So that's what I'm talking about with blood work. Now, if you look at our vitamin D label, Pedro, I was very specific. The FDA would not allow me to do that. I finally got them to allow me to do that, to be able to put it on there. So if you're getting blood work, here's where you want to be. No one's ever done that to someone who's ever done that, right? Otherwise, you saw my recommendation on the PowerPoint, and that's why you want to make sure you look at those things and print them out and put them into a library. For someone that doesn't get blood work, here's the answer. You take your multi every day, right? During high flu season, add an extra vitamin D. If you're an athlete, competitive athlete, take 2 extra every day of your life on top of your multi. For someone that I'm not going to get blood work. So that's the answer to your question, I think. Because you said no blood work. I said no blood work on all. That recommendation I gave you was no blood work.
And as we get older, does that change?
Yes, the less sun you get. Now, like Kat, I mean, her son, my son played football, obviously in a complete uniform. Kat's plays in an indoor place, no sun, right? Dark-skinned people, they have a resistance to all that. They need much more vitamin D. That's why I would encourage everyone to get a vitamin D test. And so did Dr. Fauci. So does all your top scientists. Get a vitamin D at your next physical and then adjust it accordingly. And if you look at our PDSRG, I tell you exactly how much you need based on your results. And we know that one will bring it up of maybe 5 nanograms, one a day, which is 1,000 IUs or 25 micrograms. One will bring it up about another 5 nanograms. But if you need 10, then you're going to take 2. And Kat, you can probably even say more about that because you've experienced it more than anybody.
Yeah, so without a blood test, it's, the way I sort of look at it is if you're not getting at least 30 minutes of direct sunlight to like 75% of the surface area of your skin every single day, you can supplement up to 4,000 international units a day. So who would need to do that without a blood test? I would say you're at risk for insufficiency and deficiency if you are not getting that amount and you're dark skinned and or you're older than 50, right? I mean, that's basically, or also if you're obese, because when you're obese, vitamin D is fat soluble. And where does it get stored? When you consume it, it gets stored in the fatty tissues. So all those individuals are at risk for insufficiency. So if you don't get sunlight and you're one and or all of those, in my professional opinion, you're okay with supplementing up to the upper limit, which is 4,000 international units a day. So that translates to 1 dotFIT multivitamin and 3 additional D supplements.
Yeah.
And then
so
just for your background knowledge,
up to 10 ever going to hurt anybody by giving them the complete multi and couple extra vitamin D a day. You're never, and the upside could be huge for that particular person. So they don't need a blood test for that. I'm a guy that sticks to my science, and I have blood work regularly because they have key man insurance on me, so they have to do a physical on me every year, which I wouldn't even bother, with otherwise, right? But if they lose me, they lose billions of dollars. So that's why they're protecting me. I'm worth more dead than alive, I think. So they do that blood work on me constantly. And so my vitamin D levels are always right around 38 nanograms, which is a little lower than you want for now, but I'm not an athlete anymore and I'm good. And I get a little bit of sun along with my multi, so I'm good. And I just stick to that. But I'm telling you now, Kat is right. And I think most of your scientists will say the same thing. You really need more than I'm getting. So you'll never hurt anybody by giving them a couple extra along with their multi, ever.
So, and now everybody's different because everybody has a different genetic makeup, but just to give you a bit of a reference, for me, I'm somewhat dark skinned. I live in Southern California. I have to supplement 6,000 international units a day to be right around mid-30s.
That's crazy. That's a crazy number. But that's why it's, and it really is genetic too at the same time, and obviously skin color.
Yeah.
Matt, do you have something to say?
What about you, Matt?
Yeah, we've been testing vitamin D levels since probably about 2011 with our athletes. We're just north of Chicago, so we do like a January and a July test. so that they can get an idea of, where their exposure is, when they're not inside or they're outside more. And almost zero have had enough vitamin D if they're not supplementing it.
Yep.
And we have people that are super healthy, aren't obese for the majority. We have mostly triathletes, runners, they're outside, running and cycling, most of the year, and they don't have enough, even with, high quality, expensive eating. From what I've seen, your average, let's say 45, 50-year-old person that we have in the winter, they have to get about probably about 5,000 to 8,000 IUs. And then the summertime's usually about 3 to 6. For me, I try to stay in the upper limit to try to keep my performance high. And I'm pushing 10,000 in the winter and probably like 6,000 in the summer. And I put in, 15 hours a week outside, this time of the year. And then, mowing my yard, playing with my kids, I'm outside a lot. And you can see I get plenty of sun. And I just tested it 3 weeks ago and I was at 90. And I just brought my vitamin D levels down because it's been kind of cold here.
Yeah. So on that note, your daughter, his daughter, by the way, for those who don't know, is an elite athlete. So what's her levels?
To keep her right around 70, it seems about 4,000 to 5,000. She's about 105 pounds right now, 13 years old.
Yeah, got it. Yeah, so interesting because he's a practitioner. He's working with all these sort of elite athletes, and his facility pretty much caters to all that. And up north, and that's the big difference. You're looking now. Countries are now making it mandatory. Recommendations. You get into the Norwegian country. I mean, all up there in the Scandinavian, up northern latitudes, and they're starting to fortify more than ever the vitamin D. So it's a problem. And again, we're living longer, and that's the problem. These kids don't know what's going to happen to them later on. It's building. It's happening. The building's going to come down. Yes.
We've been seeing huge correlations with kids just the last couple of years. It always seems right around Memorial Day, plus or minus about 2 weeks, all these kids start getting outside finally and playing. And all of a sudden they're in slings and boots, and it's crazy the amount of fractures the kids are having. I had 6 swimmers out, because they're notorious for horrible density, in that category itself. And they started riding their bikes and messing around with their buddies, and they were all broken because, they don't take the vitamin D. Yeah. But now those people do.
Yeah, exactly. After the fact. But again, they're young enough to where as long as they keep doing it, they'll come back. Anybody else have any feedback or questions or anything? It's a great session today. This is great. You can get anytime you got, hey, listen, one other thing, anytime you want to bring a client on or you want to bring anybody, there's never a time that I say anything I wouldn't want the whole world to hear. So you're welcome to do that, have people join you on this thing here. What should we do next month, guys, on the custom? Kat, do you have any idea? What should we do?
What do you guys want to learn about?
Next on the custom one.
Custom line?
What do you guys like to learn about? Yeah,
What's
product wise, what do you guys want to learn about?
How about the joint flex for skin and joints?
That's great.
Because that's it's like the top selling thing we're going on. You saw what's happened recently. And we're actually doing a campaign around it since we're changing the name and adding skin to the actual title as well, because that's what people are looking at. So that all happened. So why don't we do that?
Yeah, my mother loves it, and it works for her. So absolutely.
Love it. Yeah, more people are buying it for skin now than anything else. Trust me. And the older you get, the more you're going to want it too. That's for sure. All right. Any last things? Wrinkle prevention. I just saw that. Yeah, there you go. So what else? We last call.
Well, I just wanted to say that I think this was phenomenal. Touching key points on the vitamin D, I think is really important. I didn't know that at least 75% of the body need to be exposed to vitamin D in order to actually get the vitamin D levels up. And though we've created a society where we live now where we're always on the go, we never get to take the time out of our day to actually spend time outside. Or, we live in a world now where people work a hybrid or remotely, stuck in front of a desk for more than 8 hours a day. And so we don't get enough levels as we should. So this serves as a great purpose, especially in the time that we live today where the risk of injuries, I can only imagine, have started to increase, especially with the amount of people that are working behind a desk. But this serves a greater purpose for us and what we're doing as health professionals to try to reduce that number and get people to live longer and healthier so that they can actually enjoy it instead of living longer but broken.
Good.
So I appreciate this. This was really great. Thank you.
Well, perfect takeaway. And again, do you guys realize, you do the math on how cheap what we just said is? Do the math on that. And that can change a person's entire life as they age. That simple, inexpensive act. That's what I always say. You can save the world through fitness. And on that note, next month, guys, gals, next month, and we'll do joint flex. That'll be great.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time.
All right, see you guys. Matt, thanks
for
for being on. Appreciate it, buddy.
Thanks for sharing.
Appreciate
it.
Yeah. See you
Bye,
guys.
everyone. I'll send the slides out, or Belinda will send the slides out. Okay.
See you.
Bye.
See you later.